was over in China just, what, 2 weeks ago and was supporting, I don't want to say the status quo, but was supporting the Wall Street line on this.
First thing, I worked for Hank Paulson. I was at Goldman Sachs. He's a terrific guy when I was a junior banker. Paulson made a very big, you're seeing even that element of the establishment. Paulson said first, many of the things that President Trump have brought up in this populist economic nationalist movement have brought up is actually correct. We have depended upon China's kind of goodwill for too long. He says, you can't do words, we have to have actions. And then he made a statement I disagree with. He said, China is not an existential threat to the United States. I think if you look at, and this is not the Chinese people, I think the American people, I spent a lot of time in China. I actually lived in China for a little while. And when I was in the Pacific Fleet, we were all around China. It's the Chinese people, and I think the American people are very close. It is the Chinese Communist Party. You have a reckless totalitarian regime, and they've been particularly reckless. And I would talk to all the people at Yahoo Finance about their financial situation. And the elites in Wall Street have kind of gone along with this, right? And this is what I think Navarro was saying the other day. We don't need people coming in here and talking and pushing President Trump to try to do a trade deal when there's many more aspects of this that have to be rectified.
Walk me through, help us understand what the end game looks like and what success looks like. You said victory is when they give us full access to their markets. Are you talking complete unfettered trade? I mean, we don't give full access to our markets to everybody.
First of all, we have the lowest tariffs in the world, most open markets in the world. I think the Chinese, number one, stop the forced technology transfers, give our companies not just on the business side, but on the manufacturing and the intellectual property side full access. Also, you've got to start to unwind these state-owned industries, the SOEs. I mean, they continue to pour hundreds of billions of dollars into now the SOEs are going to be a geopolitical.
How do you get 82 million Chinese communists? That's the elite in China. Right. How do you get them to unwind the state-owned businesses? Their economy is built on that.
Well, look, this is talking about structural reform. That's my point, that this is an engagement. I didn't say this, and President Trump's not saying this is going to take an afternoon. This is a long-term plan of real engagement, but the engagement has to be at that level. She gave a speech yesterday. It's in this morning's Financial Times. Everybody should see. He starts off the speech by saying, hey, because of current developments, we can't get the technologies we want. We'll have to go back to self-reliance, which is a Mao Zedong term. And he said it at one of the most famous state-owned industries that was developed in 1954. And he says, we're only going to redouble our efforts as state-owned industries. And by the way, when they played this in China, they cut out the part about current developments, because what it is that the Trump administration has gotten much tougher, helping our companies in Silicon Valley protect their intellectual property. And so now, and that's why, by the way, one thing to keep in mind, the entire NAFTA deal, President Trump's strategic vision of NAFTA, and that's why a populist socialist in Mexico, that president helped push it forward, was to create a geostrategic manufacturing base, to take the supply chain, take part of the supply chain back from East Asia and start to bring it back to the Western industrial democracies. That's why Japan's going to do a bilateral deal with us. That's why Korea, we're going to get an updated deal with them. And that's why the EU, that's why Juncker came over, and they're going to do a deal with us. This is shifting the supply chain, the high value-added manufacturing jobs back from East Asia to the United States and to the West.
Or perhaps to Vietnam and to India. I got to add.
Yes, by the way, part of it is that, but I also think when you look at risk, and I think when CEOs in capital markets start to look at this, that's why NAFTA was so important. That's why NAFTA had to be the first part, and that's why the part in Mexico about point of origin, so China could not game the system.
I just have to ask you, because I want to move on to something about economic nationalism, which is your agenda. With China,
yes,
we have the potential for a meeting at the end of this month, and then we have the real trade tariff war, whatever term you want to use, January. Does this get worse before it gets better? And you should know that the people we interview, we've interviewed farmers on Yahoo Finance, although they're being hurt by this, they still support the president. But my question is, will this get worse in January?
Here's what I think. I think the president takes he takes all aspects of this together. I don't think you're going to see President Trump just do some sort of trade deal. Right now, the Chinese look at us as a tributary state. It's one of the reasons. Think of what we ship to them. We ship beef and grain and natural resources, natural gas, soybeans, etc. Very little high value added manufacturing. Okay? That is the entire point of President Trump's what he's talking about. That's why NAFTA was so important. He says, no, a major power has to have a strong, robust, vibrant manufacturing base. And our technology sector needs to work around that manufacturing base. That's why I don't think there's any easy solution. I do not believe that President Trump, as much as Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, who I've known Stephen for a long time, he was at Goldman, as much as these guys trying to push, just focusing on the trade part, this is not a trade war. When it's written up as a trade war, it's wrong. It's an economic war that's been run on